Hello and welcome to Jep's Outdoor Adventures. I'm your host Jep, and today I am joined by my lovely assistant Blackie here. And today we are testing out G9 Defense's ammunition for the 45 ACP. This is plus P ammo, and it's advertised as being for wilderness defense. It's called Woodsman ammo, and I figured today it would be kind of interesting to finish up the video. We already did all the testing about a month back, but I've been trying to edit everything together, and it was kind of interesting results. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and let's dive right in. Yeah, here we go. All right, so for our first variation of the bone barrier, we have our 1/4 inch thick piece of masonite, and see, I remember the name first time off the bat. I'm pretty proud of myself for that one because I usually forget. We have a shop rag here on the front. It's one of those nice soft white ones. Have our jug up at the front, and then after that we have 3 jugs going sideways, and then we have 9 jugs going down the length, and we have our bone barrier here. Actually, before I go over that, I want to show you, we have at the end here a piece of masonite. We marked all of the holes that we shot through. This is an old piece, has a little bit of that shop rag on the front too. We just have it here at the back just in case the bullet goes all the way through, and we mark the holes so that way we know which exit hole would actually be the one that's most recent. And we just used some spray paint that we had on hand. So looking at our bone barrier here, it is 2 3/4 inch thick pieces of plywood, and of course we mark the holes on these as well, both front and back. So the paint is still just a little bit wet, but I don't think it'll matter too much. And this is probably the best bone barrier to compare with, like what you'd hit if you shot the shoulder blade of a moose or something. The other two are a little bit tougher, so we'll just kind of see how this round does on these barriers here. And of course we colored the jugs here so that way you can see exactly what's being hit as it's being hit from the side view camera. And I think it just kind of mixes it up a little bit, makes it look nicer. I've had some people ask for this. I know Who, his YouTube channel, he does a great job. He's done this for years now, and I've always liked it, and we finally got around to trying it ourselves. So anyway, we're gonna take a step back and we'll see how this round does. Here we go. All right, so first shot here with the first variation of the bone barrier. Here we go. Oh dang, that looks like that was a spot-on shot. Okay, so yeah, you hit right on the money. That's perfect. So blew up that first jug nicely. I'm gonna try not to get my shoes wet. I forgot to wear my boots again. Okay, so there's our entrance hole and our exit on the first board. Then there's the entrance, and then the exit on the second one. As we can see, we go back a little ways here. It looks like it stopped here at the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th jug. I think I might just feel something in there. Yep. Don't know if you can see it. There's a bullet in there. And there it is. So I'll set it down and get a picture for you guys, and then we'll probably take another shot. Here we go. And I forgot to show you guys, but we had about 30 inches of penetration right there, although it did try to go out of the jug, so maybe closer to 30.5, but somewhere right about here. So that did pretty good. Okay, second shot here with the first variation of the bone barrier. Here we go. I don't think my earplug was in as far as it should have been. That was loud. So, let's see, where did we hit? It looks like we hit just a little bit lower. Different spot there. On the back you can see. I think this is it right there. There's the back side. Now let's see here. This should be the entrance and the exit on the second board there. Let's see, hit a little low, but looks like it was still pretty square. Get this around here. Still nice and squared away with the jug, which is good. See, this one's definitely leaking. Looks like it went into, I think this is the fifth one again. Yep. Oh yeah, there it is. Let's see, was there any damage? Not really. So it stopped in the fifth jug. Poured that one out a little fast. So there you go. I'm gonna set it down and take a picture, and then we'll move on from there. Here we go. And I once again forgot. We're looking at anywhere from about 29 to 30 inches of penetration there. That's pretty solid. And something that I wanted to point out is that it's been perfectly in line so far, which I was not expecting for a bullet that's as lightweight as this is. So that is actually really great. Now I don't want to jinx it, so knock on wood. But seriously, I don't know how it'll do with the next few bone barriers, but at least for this one, it's been pretty good so far. The penetration isn't the farthest, because the 460, I seem to remember it was right about here. But I mean, for a 45 ACP, this is pretty solid, especially for an all copper round like this. So I'm pretty proud of it so far. Let's see how it does on the subsequent tests. All right, so we have decided to move on to the second variation of the bone barrier. We did move some of this stuff, so we moved the masonite over. I'm gonna have to get rid of that sticker and I'm gonna have to replace the sticker. But here we have the exact same amount of jugs. We did have to scooch them up just a little bit, because instead of 2 pieces of 3/4 inch thick plywood, we're now dealing with 1 1/2 inch thick piece of cutting board. This is some solid stuff. You can find this online. I've helped people find it before. It's not terribly expensive. We found this board for sale at a thrift store, I think, and we just kind of cut it up into pieces, and it's been working great. I think this is our most accurate bone barrier because it has that solid but still slightly stretchy type quality that bone can have, depending upon which bone you're looking at on the body. But it's really dense, it's nice and solid, and I think it's honestly the most accurate one that we've used so far, and I really like it. Anyway, we are going to take a step back and we'll see how it does. This is the barrier that got the extreme penetrator rounds for the 10mm to keyhole. So we'll see how this round does on this. All right, here we go. All right, this is our third shot in total. First shot with the second variation of the bone barrier. Here we go. Oh yeah, okay. Looks like it went straight in. This is awesome so far. I was not expecting the round to do this well, not to disrespect G9 ammo, but as you can see, we got a nice plumb shot there on the first jug, blew it open. Where'd we hit? Okay, right there. on the masonite. A nice straight in entrance hole and exit hole on our bone barrier there. Excuse me, on the bone barrier. As you can see, I think this is the 5th jug again. Well, let's see. It looks like it exited there or hit it. Don't see any indent on that jug, nor on this one, so I think it's probably still in here. Yep. Oh, and it's sitting up straight too. That's perfect. Nice, and there's really hardly any deformation on these rounds too, which is great. Maybe just a tiny bit on that point, but otherwise they're looking pretty solid to me. And any discoloration you see, that's from handling the rounds. We've had them for a few months now and haven't gotten around to using them. I remember looking at them a couple times, and I think that was just from my oils on my hand interacting with the copper. Otherwise, they look perfect from the factory. So, all right, let's move around before I forget. And look, is right at the barrier there. So looking at about 29 inches, or no, maybe a little bit closer, 29 1/4 or so. It's not an exact science, but that's right. Okay, so my producer, my dad, pointed out to me, good point. This jug has retained most of its water here. And it's only once you open it up that it starts to lose it. So it seems like it's actually a fairly clean hole that this round creates, because it isn't letting any air in. Just pretty neat. This is the 2nd time now. Maybe it was the 3rd time. We didn't really notice on the first, but at least the last 2 times we've noticed that this jug, or the jug that's placed right here, has not let go of much of its water until you remove the cap and let the air in. And that would be about the 15-inch mark if you're going down the middle. So that's pretty neat. And then again, you're looking at about 29 1/4 inches, give or take, for the round to actually stop moving. So a good point that Dad kind of brought out to me, because I'm just looking at this from the perspective of consistency and doing a good job just zipping through the jugs, but practically I'm not sure if that was actually good performance. And I know I probably had some people writing up comments in the comment section after I said all that, because when you think about it, the first jug did blow up quite a bit. The second one did start to split a little bit, but not a whole lot. And there's not a lot of shock. This round isn't really hitting these rounds. I mean, in the past we've shot like the Buffalo Bore and Underwood hard casts, and they've just fell off the table in a hurry. I mean, they've gotten hit. Some of the rounds not quite so much, but it still kind of shakes the table a little bit. This one is just kind of zipping through, but it's not causing a ton of wound damage. And I do wonder if that would be a detriment to someone if they had to use it in the field, if a bear's coming at them. And we're only like, what, 10-12 feet away from the jugs here, so we're not that far away. So I don't know, that could be just fine, or it could be a sign that this round maybe isn't the best for defense, at least against a big predator. I don't know. I'm curious to see how it'll do with the ceramic barrier, because that one really pushes these rounds to the extreme, and I'll be interested in seeing if it really shatters those ceramic plates and goes very far after it or not. So I don't know, we'll see. I think we'll take another shot with this bone barrier again, just to see if we can replicate the results, and then we'll move on. So let me know what you guys think so far. All right, second shot with the second variation of the bone barrier. Here we go. I gotta say, I'm behind the gun and I'm feeling the impact, the shock wave, if you will. So this round does have some pep. Oh, 6 jugs this time, and it exited out the back. So that's good. It did look like it kind of skated around the, well, it still went through the jugs, it's just on the edge. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see, back up for a sec. Hit right there, I believe. Here's our entrance hole and our exit hole. As you can see, we kind of hit a little off to the side, not horribly though. Still going through the jugs. And here it is, right on there, if I can grab it. I gotta move the jug out of my way. So if we move around, gosh, what are we looking at here? Like 41.5 inches, give or take, so that's pretty good. And the round looks pretty solid. But again, you know, this one right here isn't leaking water a whole lot. And you can see it is starting to though, so that's something. This one is leaking out. And a couple of them, it's already gone down far enough to where it can't leak anymore because it's past the hole, but that's kind of interesting. I'm going to take a picture of this and see where we go from there. All right, so we've decided to move on to the third variation of the bone barrier. We don't have a whole lot of jugs left over, and because the round did go through the jugs and it didn't just skate around, I think it's pretty safe to say that it counts as a good performance, and we can just move on to the next barrier, especially because this one will be quite revealing, I think. Here we have 2 roughly 1/4 inch thick ceramic tiles. Now, I've had some people criticize me for this, but I really don't care, and I know that sounds a little callous, but it's because of the fact that I like testing these rounds as much as possible. I know some people really just want realism, but if you can test a round past what you could expect to find in a real animal, and it does perform well, then you know for a fact that that round will perform well in real life. It's only if it doesn't that you have questions, but given we have 2 other bone barriers that we have to go through before this one, and they're fairly realistic as far as the bone goes, I think that we're looking at a great series of tests. I would like to add to it down the road, but for today we're just going to stick to what we've done in the past. And I think this round will be this test will be very revealing, because will the ceramic tiles break up considerably, and will the round continue going on much farther? Some rounds it doesn't go past more than 2 jugs. Sometimes you might find more than that. I'm curious to see how well this one will do and just the kind of shock and damage that it will cause. So without any further ado, we're going to take a step back and see how it does. Here we go. All right, this is one we've all been waiting for. Third variation of the bone barrier. First shot, here we go. There we go, that was some shock. Not as much as some of the other rounds we've tested, but that was better. Something we've noticed is that only like 3 or 4 bottle caps have been thrown around with this round. But usually with the hard cast rounds, they get thrown all over the place, and we got a lot of them that we have to clean up. So as you can see here, we broke it up fairly well. However, looks like the bullet, oh okay, there we go. It went in, deviated a little bit into the left-hand side row. Did it go into this one at all? I don't think it did. I think it probably just stopped in here. Oh. Looks like it poked the side of this one. Yep, I can see it. So let's pour it out. And that's only 3 jugs. If I go around to the side here, it did hit the end of the jug, so we're looking at about, oh gosh, 17 3/4 inches of penetration. Not fantastic, but not horrible either. It looks like it just may have fragmented at the beginning quite a bit, but otherwise it still kept its shape fairly well. As you can see, it did squish out just a little bit. Excuse me, I'm sorry about my voice today. So yeah, that did lose a little bit of weight. Either that or it just kind of was squished down. I'm not entirely sure whether or not it fragmented. I don't think it did, because there's not a lot of jagged edges here, anything. So we'll have to weigh the bullet and kind of see how that turns out. I'm going to take a couple pictures, and we're going to move on to the chronograph testing. Here we go. And I thought I'd show you guys the first jug like I've done in the past. It was a little bit off to the side, so it wasn't quite a nice plumb and square shot like we want, right down the middle. It did cause quite a bit of damage there, as you can see, so there's that. Looks like it hit on the right hand side of this jug, and then once it hit the barrier, it kind of turned and went off to the left. So we try to have all the handles sticking out this way if we can. So that's quite a big entrance hole right there. So drop your comments down below, guys, what you think. Let's move on with the chronograph. All right, we're going to do the chronograph testing, and since the chronograph can be a little bit finicky, we're just going to reset it after every round. So here's the first one. 1153, 1166, 1145, 1157, 1178. All right, guys, we are back out here in the lodge, and I'm joined by my lovely assistant, Ushi, or Ushi Bear, if you will. Anyway, we, as you saw there, got some interesting results, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the video too. It's a mixed bag. To start us off here, the firearm that we used, because I know I'm going to get some questions on that. As you can see here, it is a Rock Island Armory A1 FS. It's a full-size 1911. A very nice gun. It's worked really well for us. It's the same full-size 1911 we've used in the past. As far as the chronograph results go, as you saw there, it came out to 1,153 feet per second, 1,166 feet per second, 1,145 feet per second, 1,157 feet per second, and 1,178 feet per second. When you average that out, it comes out to an average of 1,159.8 feet per second, or 353.507 meters per second. So that's not too bad. It is advertised, however, at 1,230 feet per second, so it is a little bit faster on paper. In reality, it did not come out to all that. But thankfully, that's not a massive difference. But it is enough to affect the performance a little bit. As far as the bullet weights go, we captured 5 bullets, came out to 164.8 grains, 165.1 grains, 165.5 grains, 165.3 grains, and then for the deformed bullet, after the ceramic barrier, there, the third variation of the bone barrier, that one came out to 165.7 grains, and I did, retry it a few times. So it did indeed come out to practically the same weight that it was loaded as. So that's pretty impressive. Most of the bullets that we've tested with that ceramic barrier lose a bit of weight. Now sometimes it's not a whole lot, Sometimes it's only like 10 grains, 20 grains, you know, it's something, but it's not a massive difference. Sometimes it is a massive difference. But in this case, it stayed the same, which is pretty impressive. And that's considering the fact that it deformed quite a bit. So I'm pretty proud of this bullet when it comes to staying together. So the average without the deformed bullet, not that it really matters, but since I've done this in the past, I just want to kind of keep that up, came out to 165.175 grains. And then the average with the deformed bullet came out to 165.28 grains. Now, the bullet sizes in the past, we have measured them to see how tall they were and how wide they were to see if they were deformed in any way. But this was not necessary with these rounds. As you saw there with the ceramic tests, it maintained its weight. It did deform a little bit, but not too badly, and it didn't really shed any weight. The previous bone barriers didn't really affect it very much. If anything was going to affect it badly, it would have been the ceramic. All the other ones stayed exactly the same. They did not deform at all, except for maybe a tiny little nick off the bullet at the very, very top. That little point. If you look at some of the photos, you can kind of see it. Unfortunately, some of the photos turned out blurry, and I don't know why that was. I tried to take good photos. It was using my phone to take them, and I guess I just missed the focus on some of them, so I apologize for that. I tried to choose the best ones I could to put into the video. But anyway, the bullets did not shrink at all. They didn't squish down a little bit. They didn't mushroom out at all. They stayed exactly the same. So that was fantastic. The only one that did, you know, deform a little bit was, of course, the ceramic one, and that one we did measure, of course. It came out to 0.434 inches, or 11.03 millimeters tall, by 0.516 inches, or 13.10 millimeters wide at its widest point. So the energy, what's nice about this is we don't really need to try to come up with too many figures here. Typically we'll calculate the energy without the deformed bullets being factored in, because typically they lose some weight, and so that does skew the numbers a little bit. Then we do calculate the energy with the deformed bullets added in, or bullet if it's only one in this case, right? And then we have the energy with the stock bullet weight. But in this case, they all end up the exact same pretty much. So we just did one calculation, and I followed that under energy without deformed bullets, just the first one there. So the energy came out to 493 foot-pounds of force, or 0.6684 kilojoules of force. We've had some people ask for that in the past. A Taylor KO of 12, and a momentum of 27. So when you look at the numbers here, the rounds came out to 1,159.8 feet per second and 493 foot-pounds of force per shot on average. However, they were advertised at being 1,230 feet per second and hitting with 554 foot-pounds of force per shot. I mean, that is a little bit of a difference. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not a massive difference, but a difference nonetheless. So as far as the average penetration goes, the numbers that I calculated, I did have to put a little notation there for one of them. I did, I think, mismeasure it. I think I was overestimating how far the bullet went, so I put a little note there in the video. So the penetration came out to about 30 inches, 29.5 inches, 29.25 inches, 38 inches, and then 17.75 inches, give or take. Of course, that's just me kind of eyeballing it. These aren't scientific numbers by any means, but if we take those as fact, and then we try to average them up, just as kind of a thought exercise, just to kind of see, without the third variation of the bone barrier or ceramic barrier, we get 31.687 inches of penetration. However, when you add in the third variation of the bone barrier or the ceramic, excuse me, you get 28.9 inches of penetration. So not horrible. The notes I made, as you saw there, was that it had very clean penetration and it had good inline penetration. It wasn't trying to, you know, go off to the sides. It wasn't keyholing at all, which I kind of expected because the Underwood ammo, 140 grain, I believe, extreme penetrators for the 10mm did keyhole, and that's unacceptable under any circumstances. You know, it was up against arguably the most realistic bone barrier we have, the second variation, and it keyholed twice, and I don't like that at all. I don't understand why exactly it did that, but it did it nonetheless, and I'm not comfortable with that. It used to be a round that I would kind of talk about for bear protection. Now I don't talk about it at all. It's possible that some of the larger rounds, like the 44 Magnum, will have enough weight to counterbalance any effects that the 10mm experienced, and it will do just fine. But until I know for sure which rounds do well and which rounds just do not, I just don't like talking about that round unless I'm noting what happened to it, because I do not like that. I did notice that Underwood Ammo did up the weight of the extreme penetrator for the 10mm recently. They came out with a 150 grain, I believe. I don't know if that was in response to my testing or what. I'm sure people have talked about it a little bit. But whatever the case is, that performance did not make me very comfortable at all. I saved you, Ushi. Had a wasp try and land on her. A big one, too.
Yes, Gus, a big one.
All right, guys, time to talk about my thoughts. This is actually the third time I have recorded this portion of the video, because in the past I viewed it a little too harshly, and as I was editing the video, kind of putting everything together and making my case, I realized that I didn't really have much of one, and I did not want to, you know, make people think that this ammunition wasn't good. Now, I could have just sent the video out there, just left it as it was, and it would have been easier in the moment. But I figure, you know, G9 Defense is a smaller company. They're a somewhat local company, and the last thing I want to do is, doesn't matter where they're at. If a company is small, I want to, you know, help them, right? If there's genuine criticism, I want to give it, but I don't want to be defamatory. I don't want to make people think that the performance was, you know, less than what it actually was. I want it to be as accurate as possible. No matter what the performance was, I want to present it in as accurate a manner as possible. And sometimes people just skip to the end of the video to hear my thoughts and not even bother with watching the video. So not everyone would just watch and see for themselves. They might just rely on me. And so I want to be as honest as I can be. So, you know, I initially thought that this round didn't hit hard enough. And, you know, here's a comparison between this round and then another round that we've tested out in the past. And you can see that, you know, the two have a little bit of a performance difference. With some of the other rounds we've tested out, the 10mm, 357 mag, some of the heavier hitting or harder hitting 45 rounds, you do see a little bit of a shuffle from the Jugs. I had thought it was a much bigger difference than it actually was. When you look at this round, you do see that the table lurches just a little bit, and that there is some splashing on the inside of the Jugs. You can see where the water level kind of went back and forth. It was definitely hit, and there was some visible shock, but it wasn't as much as the other rounds we've tested out. Now, of course, when you're comparing the 45 ACP to the 10mm or 357 mag, it is a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison. It's not going to be perfectly even, but as far as performance goes, it's actually pretty good. It's not the top of the line. You know, if you're looking at like the Underwood hardcast and the Buffalo Bore hardcast, like those are just phenomenal. I definitely prefer them over this as far as overall, like kind of power output goes, but it's not a big difference. And in fact, I'd say this could be used almost as well. I'm still a little uncomfortable with trying to use it on anything bigger than a large, like black bear type size, because it just isn't hitting with quite enough like force. But I suppose with proper shot placement, it could work for something a little bigger. But I'd say anything about 400, 500 pounds or less, you'd probably be just fine. Anything more than that, I do feel like you should probably step it up a little bit, because it's just not quite as hard hitting as I'd like. But I'd say that it's a lot better than the extreme penetrator was for the 10mm. It keyholed, and I can't have that. That's not good. So it's a lot better than that. We also had tested out a, I think it was Freedom Munitions ball ammo. It was one of their full metal jacket type rounds. For the 45, everyone calls it bowl ammo, so I'm just going to go with that. Anyway, it's made as basically practice, target practice ammo, nothing real fancy. However, it got stuck in that very same barrier. For both of them, it was the second variation of the bone barrier, and they didn't do well against that at all. This guy just punched right through, so I'm very happy about that. It stayed together really well. Like I said, that bullet, it held together phenomenally well. I checked it numerous times because I didn't quite believe my eyes, but no, it was accurate. It maintained all of its weight. With just the general like penetration distance, all that, it did pretty darn well. And I don't remember it having any issues cycling through our gun either. That is something that we had found with the 460 Roland, is that it didn't want to cycle through the gun very well. Not this ammo, but the 255 grain hard cast from Buffalo Bore. It just did not want to cycle. So I don't know if we'll find that the Underwood rounds have the same issue, but as far as Buffalo Bore, the 460 Roland just didn't really want to cycle well, and that is a very severe dampener on whether or not I want to promote that round, because even though the performance, like it hit hard, it penetrated pretty well, it still is very difficult for me to want to promote it if it doesn't want to cycle through your gun. If it can't fire through your gun smoothly, then it can't save your life. And so I have to say, if I had to compare the two, I would prefer this over that, simply because this actually performed well when it comes to cycling through the gun. I still would not want to take it, though, up in grizzly territory. I just don't feel like it is quite powerful enough, but you could, just like you could with the 40 Smith & Wesson. It's very much up to you what you're comfortable with. I do recommend that if you carry a round that's a little bit lower on the power scale, that you carry it with a good primary gun. It needs to be more of a sidearm than a primary firearm. And when I say primary, I'm talking about a long gun, like a good rifle or shotgun. When you're looking at rifles, a 444 Marlin, the 450 Bushmaster, 450 Marlin, 4570, rounds like that, calibers like that. And then with the shotgun, of course, slugs and heavy buckshot. Can't go wrong with that, as long as it's the right type of slugs. The Brennecke Black Magic slugs appear to be the best out there, but I haven't tested them just yet. But we will get around to that when we get our full-size table figured out. I don't quite feel like it would be even worth our time trying to shoot them with the table that we have right now, because it's for handguns, and I have a feeling those Brennecke Black Magic slugs would just blow the whole thing apart. We have a metal frame for the table, and we're going to have to try and put that together soon and try and crank out more videos. Now that I have better equipment, I feel a lot more comfortable filming, even when it's windy out, but finding the time is kind of difficult. We're moving into hunting season already. I don't know how, so we'll just kind of play it by ear, guys, but I appreciate y'all staying with me, despite the fact that I don't upload very frequently. It means a lot to me. And please let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you feel like this is something you'd be comfortable carrying? If so, where? Is there a round that you would prefer carrying instead? If you're like me, you kind of prefer the Underwood. If you're going for territory we're not entirely sure what you're going to be encountering, then that'd be kind of neat. I'd like to hear what you have to say. The 45 in general probably isn't the best round to carry if you're going to be encountering anything about 800 pounds or more, because I just don't trust it to quite have enough oomph to do the job. But maybe I'm being a little too harsh on this round. Maybe it did better in your eyes than it did to me. Maybe I'm being a little too lenient on it. Maybe you feel like it just wasn't good enough at all. I want to hear what you guys think. Shout out to G9 Defense. They did not send me this ammo. I purchased it myself, but they seem like a good group of guys, so shout out to them. And thank you all very much for watching. Please click that like button, that share button down below, and copy the link. Share it wherever you feel comfortable. Please subscribe. You know the deal. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.